Hulu's new Spanish-language boxing series La Máquina may not be directly based on a true story, but there are a lot of real-life inspirations behind the series, so here is the context that viewers need before diving into the critically acclaimed show. Although boxing has been a topic covered in all kinds of iconic films and TV shows like Rocky, Raging Bull, and more, La Máquina looks at how the world of Mexican boxing and crime overlap. The show's tense boxing storyline is incredibly interesting, and here are the real-life events surrounding Mexican boxing that inspired Hulu's La Máquina. La Máquina comes from frequent collaborators Gael Garcia Bernal and Diego Luna, who have appeared together in iconic projects like Y Tu Mama Tambien. The duo's latest collaboration sees an aging boxer and his manager get caught up in a criminal scandal when they make a deal with a gangster who promises that they will die if the boxer doesn't lose his next match. While the story of Gael Garcia Bernal's Esteban La Máquina Osuna may not be based on one true person, it does have some interesting connections to the real world of Mexican boxing. La Máquina is not a real-life boxer. He may be inspired by a variety of sources. As it turns out, Gael Garcia Bernal's Esteban La Máquina Osuna shares his name with a real-life boxer named Esteban Osuna. However, this is where the similarities end. The real-world Esteban Osuna was an Argentinian boxer who was active from 1960 to 1979, with him seemingly being successful throughout his fighting career. However, the real Esteban Osuna has no known ties to the criminal underworld, with the story of Gael Garcia Bernal's Esteban La Máquina Osuna being entirely unrelated, although it isn't known if the series intentionally chose this shared name. While the true inspirations for Esteban La Máquina Osuna have not been revealed just yet, it can be assumed that the character pulls from a variety of real-world Mexican boxers. In La Máquina, Esteban is considered an underdog, with his age leading many to believe that he has become washed up. Diego Luna's Andy has trouble finding matches for Esteban, with this being the key factor in why the duo turns to the criminal underworld of Mexican boxing. So, even though the real boxers that inspired Esteban remain a mystery, we can look at a few real-life underdogs from the world of Mexican boxing. Although not yet confirmed to be a direct inspiration, José Valenzuela is a recent story from the world of Mexican boxing that resembles the protagonist of La Máquina. Valenzuela was an underdog who ended up winning the super lightweight world championship by winning against Isaac Pitbull Cruz, something that was completely unexpected. Another Mexican boxer who resembles Esteban Osuna is Luis Villanueva Paramo, also known as Kid Azteca. Despite his name, Kid Azteca quickly became known for his age, as his professional boxing career spanned 4 decades. As time went on, his age did become a factor in getting matches and who would fight him, similar to Esteban's situation at the beginning of La Máquina. However, these are just 2 of the many incredibly famous Mexican boxers who could have served as inspirations for La Máquina when the series was being written. Boxing has a long history with corruption. As is depicted in many movies, boxing has been associated with corruption for an incredibly long time, with the sport and criminality nearly going hand in hand. While this obviously does not apply to every person who is involved with the world of boxing, many professional boxing leagues and professional boxers have taken part in various acts of corruption, with things like rigging matches and intentionally throwing fights being frequently seen. Boxing's previous ties to organized crime as well as other unsavory activities have had a hand in giving the sport this reputation. Many of the most well-known boxing movies and TV shows have depicted this issue, with series like Daredevil and movies like Pulp Fiction featuring stories similar to La Máquina in which a fighter is forced to throw a fight in order to help out the mob. Stories about boxers being forced to take a dive yet refusing to have become a trope in the boxing sports genre, with La Máquina being the best recent example of this. Things haven't gotten much better in recent years. In 2022, McLaren Global Sports Solutions released an independent investigation of the International Boxing Association, with the investigation finding evidence of corrupt officials, secret signaling between people in and out of the ring, seemingly corrupt scoring numbers, and more. In 2019, the International Olympic Committee suspended its recognition of the IBA due to corruption among other issues, with them refusing to reinstate the organization in 2023 after they didn't find sufficient improvements. So, the state of the modern boxing world still isn't great, which is why corruption throughout La Máquina isn't a surprise to see. Boxing's dark history with organized crime explained. The two have been tied together for ages. Boxing's history with corruption has already been touched on, but the history of boxing's ties with organized crime is even more important. The boxing brand BoxRaw did a fantastic breakdown of some of the most famous stories of organized crime overlapping with boxing, highlighting how groups like the Mafia have helped the sport to develop. One of the most famous stories of the mob's connection to boxing centers of fighter Jake LaMotta, with the story being chronicled in Martin Scorsese's film Raging Bull. LaMotta was a talented boxer who unfortunately had heavy ties to the mob, with him being asked to throw a match against Billy Fox in 1947. The suspicious events surrounding LaMotta's loss and the strange gambling patterns throughout the fight raised many eyebrows, with New York State Athletic Commission investigating and suspending LaMotta. In 1960, LaMotta was a witness against the mob, highlighting their role in the boxing world.